Hey, welcome back, everyone. I want to talk about, a tragedy today, which is the school shooting in Nashville where a trans person killed three kids and three adults. But I want to talk about something that I don't think many people are talking about, which was that a lot of the information that was radicalizing the trans movements to get guns and believing there was going to be a trans genocide, this was actually caused or instigated by the FBI. The FBI published crime stats which had skewed numbers, which I'll be showing to you all. I'll show you exactly how they skewed those numbers. And that false information was then pushed by all the major news outlets to create this fake story that there was a trans genocide and people were freaking out. People were arming up, they were organizing militias, and then this happened. I want to talk about exactly what happened. I'm not going to pull any punches on it. The FBI falsified data and then, of course, freaked people out, and this is what happened. So we'll talk about that. I also want to talk about the Trans Day of Vengeance, they're calling it, which was scheduled prior to all this. I believe actually this week or next week it's going to be happening. And of course, people are very concerned about this given the recent shooting. And also, if we have time now, I want to get into TikTok because, well, they're talking about banning TikTok, which I generally support. Those of you who watch this show understand that I talk a lot about the Chinese Communist Party and how it uses platforms like this. The TikTok ban is not really a TikTok ban. The TikTok ban is basically Patriot Act Part 2. It would give the government basically control over every single platform of information, whether it's your phone, whether it's your local area network like your modem in your home, whether it's your computer, whether it's satellites, quantum computing, AI. It gives them control over everything. And the potential ways that this new power could be used if they pass it is beyond imagination. We'll see if we get into it. A lot to talk about today, folks. That said, thank you for being here. I do apologize that the news is not more pleasant, but what are you going to do, right? We got to be honest, right? That said, folks, those of you on Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, we will jump over exclusively to Epoch TV after about 25 minutes. We're walking a thin line on this one because I've seen other people actually get banned on even Twitter for talking about some of this stuff. So thank you for being here. Be sure to join us on Epoch TV where we don't have to worry about getting banned. All right, folks, let's get into it. Thank you all for being here. Let's start off by the basic news. I want to talk about what actually happened. Epoch Times had the story. Dramatic body cam footage shows Nashville officers rushing to stop Christian school shooter, and I won't show you the video because it's disturbing, but if you want to watch it, you can. It says the Nashville Police Department released body cam footage of the Covenant School shooting response showing the moment officers shot and killed shooter Audrey Elizabeth Hale, a 28-year-old transgender former student who was accused of killing 6 people on Monday. It says police earlier identified the shooter who was killed by police and said Hale was a former student, she was 28 of course, and shot through the doors of the private Christian elementary school. Hale had drawn a detailed map of the school, including potential entry points, and conducted surveillance of the building before carrying out the massacre, authorities said. This was a woman who believed she was a man, by the way. Further, it states the victims included 3 9-year-old children, a substitute teacher, a custodian, and the school's administration. Officials said the 3 9-year-old children were identified by authorities. I won't say their names, but yeah, it's a real tragedy, folks. Terrible, terrible stuff. Now, I want to show you what happened just prior to this, because what actually happened prior to this, I believe, is the real story. You had these trans activist groups talking about buying guns. You had New York Times, you had NPR, you had the Young Turks, all telling trans groups, well, some of them actually directly telling them, like Young Turks, buy guns. And these are people who are normally very anti-gun. They were telling people, writing puff pieces about potential violence against trans groups and saying they need to arm up. And the painted enemy in all this was Christians whose moral values go against the trans movement and therefore are the enemy who want to kill them. That was the narrative being pushed by just about every major news outlet, at least on the left. And what was that inspired by? That was inspired by the FBI. Let me show you. Just before this, the FBI released stats on violence on on what they call anti-trans hate. It was being used to frame this narrative of genocide against transgenders. The problem with that? They skewed the numbers. They misrepresented the data. And they drew false conclusions from that data as well. Let me show you how they did it. Daily Wire actually had a good analysis on this. It says FBI stats on 2021 anti-trans hate crimes don't support claims of genocide. It says Americans who claim to be transgender were the victims of 271 hate crimes in 2021. It said, with few of the crimes being serious, undercutting the claims that the community is facing genocide, according to FBI data released this week. Of the 177 cases where the offender's race was known, 81 offenders were black, about 60 were white, 20 were Hispanic, and 1 was Asian. Still, even that data could be misleading, as FBI statistics inflate the number of white hate crime perpetrators, and they inflated the number of white people who they say did this, and this is how they did it. They counted Hispanics and Arabs as white. It says, to a limited extent, the data can be adjusted to treat Hispanic as a race separate from black and white, which the Daily Wire did in the above numbers, but in many cases the ethnicities were not even recorded, forcing them to be treated as white. So if the ethnicity could not be recorded, they defaulted as white people, which is how they frame this narrative of white extremism targeting the trans community in a genocide. It says, although Arab is counted as a separate category when it comes to the victim, there is no such category for perpetrators, leaving them to generally be counted as white, because that was how they defaulted everything. People of Arab descent have been behind some anti-Jewish crimes, as Daily Wire, so they're big on that. And their inclusion in statistics could change the anti-transgender breakdown as well. In big part here, the data does not support the notion widely pushed by activists and Democrats that there is a genocide of transgenders underway. And you had politicians, you had most of the major news outlets, you had activist groups all claiming that there was a genocide of transgender individuals. There's a genocide. Arm up, buy guns, start militias. This is what the mainstream media were actually saying. And this is, again, NPR, this is Young Turks telling people this. The people are coming to kill you, you better buy a gun. That's what they were telling them. This is not me saying it. This is what they were saying. And I'll show you the videos later in this episode. I will show you what they were saying. And these groups, I would argue, are radicalizing these people because they're convincing them that people are out to kill them using fake data. And what does the data actually say? You be the judge if this is a genocide. Of the 271 crimes against transgenders, the FBI reported 2 slayings and 2 rapes. 2 people killed in 2021, and they're saying that's a genocide. 2 people. Now, could we say that now that 6 Christians were killed by a transgender activist, 6 Christians were killed in a premeditated attack, including 3 9-year-old children? Is that a genocide against Christians? Well, it's 3 times as bad as the genocide against transgenders, apparently. 3 times as bad. Because as opposed to the 2 people killed, this is 6 people killed. Now, are these same news outlets, the same activists, the same politicians going to go and claim there's a genocide against Christians because it's 3 times as bad as the quote-unquote genocide against the transgender community? Oh, we'll see, right? This is how they're framing it. This is the fake data they're using to frame this. Now it says of the remainder 70 incidents, of all the remaining numbers, 70 of those were what they call intimidation. There were 48 aggravated assaults, 87 simple assaults, 8 robberies, 14 thefts, 37 instances of vandalism or damage. 2 people killed. And they're saying that's a genocide. And the media, the politicians, these different activist groups, they are using those 2 people, The claim is a genocide and telling people to buy guns and that they need to defend themselves. And then, of course, you watch what just happened because of that fake information being pushed by these organizations. I'm going to show you all this stuff, folks. We're going to go in depth on this today. I'll be showing you exactly what they said, exactly what they were instigating, exactly what it caused. I'll show you all the evidence, all the videos. We're going to go over all of it. Before we go deeper, though, we do have an advertiser today. Today's episode is brought to you by American Hartford Gold. Folks, as we've been talking about, inflation is going to continue and likely get worse. Even Fed Chair Powell is warning us to brace ourselves. Well, there's one way to hedge against inflation. American Hartford Gold makes it simple and easy to diversify your savings and retirement accounts with physical gold and silver. With one short phone call, they can have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door into your IRA or 401k. American Hartford Gold is one of the highest rated firms in the country with an A-plus rating from the BBB and thousands of satisfied clients. If you call them right now, they'll give you up to $2,500 of free silver and a free safe on qualifying orders. So don't wait, call them now. That's 877-260-2764. Again, 877-260-2764. Or text Joshua to 65532. Again, 877-260-2764 or text Joshua to 65532. And big thanks out to American Hartford Gold to sponsor today's episode. Folks, let's go deeper into this. I want to show you how the media, I would say, instigated this. I would blame this on corrupt news outlets. I would blame this on corrupt news outlets and corrupt politicians who are telling people that they're under threat when they were not. And who told them to buy guns, who told them to arm up, who told them people were out to kill them, from the same people saying you shouldn't own a gun, from many of the same people who are very anti-gun activists telling groups that they agree with to buy guns based on fake data that they're facing a genocide. And let me show you some of those articles. This is Texas Monthly. It says, quote, fearing that state leaders want them eradicated, some transgender Texans embrace firearms. It says, as hate crimes have risen. Remember, that's based on the fake FBI numbers. As hate crimes have risen, and as lawmakers consider bills targeting queer Texans' livelihoods, those Texans say more members of their community intend to defend themselves. It says, handling a .50 caliber machine gun atop a Stryker armored fighting vehicle in Iraq and Afghanistan, Josephine became an expert at scanning her surroundings for potential threats. I believe this is a man who thinks he's a woman, but let's go further. It says the Army taught her how to absorb a flood of information in a moment. And on a patrol, she would count the number of passengers inside an approaching vehicle, identify places where she could quickly seek cover if necessary, or commit a patch on someone's jacket to memory. Since she returned to civilian life nearly a decade ago in Killeen, a central Texas town adjacent to Fort Hood Army Base, those skills have mostly lain dormant. Recently, however, Josephine, who began identifying as a transgender woman after leaving the military, has begun to feel that she's back on the battlefield. Like many other queer Texans, she has read with mounting concern, that fake data, about rising rates of violence and intimidation against transgender Americans. That fake FBI data. It says, she asked for her last name to be concealed for fear of being harassed. Lately, when she stops at a red light, pulls into a gas station, or enters a Walmart, she anxiously scans her surroundings for symbols she associates with American extremism. That's Confederate flags, back the blue bumper stickers, Punisher decals on jacked up trucks. And now amid the 2023 Texas legislative session, in which lawmakers have introduced more than 130 bills that seek to radically transform the lives of members of the nation's second largest queer population, Josephine says extremism is no longer fringe. To her and many others, the slate of legislation now for consideration looks like the beginning state of a larger attempt to criminalize and eventually eradicate transgender Texans. Folks, this is what they're being told. Fake data used to create a fake narrative, used to create fake fear, which is making people arm up and start treating other Americans like they're going to eradicate them. And they are scanning things, looking for symbols of extremism, and they are arming up and they believe you're out to kill them because of this fake data, these politicians spreading this propaganda. It says, she argues that the debates about transgender identity parallel the Jewish question, meaning the Holocaust, right, in 19th and 20th century Europe, and set the stage for widespread violence against Jews and other undesirable minority groups, including homosexuals. In particular, Josephine is concerned by the introduction of Senate Bill 1029, which, if passed, could effectively end gender-affirming health care for transgender adults. Other bills of particular concern to her would require that individuals of all ages undergo psychological evaluation before they can receive such care. Ban classroom instruction about sexual orientation and gender identity to certain grade levels, and impose civil fines as much as $10,000 on venues that host drag performances. Of course, they're conflating two things here. They're conflating bills against transgender services, surgeries, and exposing children to sexualization. They're conflating that with hate crimes and genocide. They're taking two very different things. By the way, if you want to watch what they're doing with these children drag shows and you want to see some terrifying stuff, go watch them. See what they're doing. These are not kids being told to, plotting like on a runway. They're very sexual shows with children. And that's what they're talking about banning. This isn't about killing people or anything like that. But this is the way the media is framing it. This is the way the political factions are framing it. Let me show you this. This is Cenk Uygur with the Young Turks. And he responded to this. He told them to get guns. He told them to buy guns. Because he said, quote, the right-wing lunatics are going to attack them. Let me play this for you.
I'll be a little bit of a hypocrite here, but it's not. I'll explain why I'm saying it. I don't like guns. I would ban assault weapons in a second. We can go on and on about the gun control that we need in this country. And I always tell people, don't get guns. It'll make you less safe. I'm gonna make an exception here for trans people. They are actually in danger. They have had hundreds of laws passed against them. They have right-wing media ginning up fear against them 24/7. They are targeted more than any other group in America. And if anyone should get guns, it should be trans Americans.
So that is a fake statement informed by fake information being pushed to encourage people to buy guns using fake fear, which is radicalizing them, believing they're being targeted in a genocide. This is another video shortly after the shooting took place and how the media is framing it. The media, the mainstream media, they're not trying to defend these, 6 people killed. They're not talking about this little 9-year-old girl whose father was the pastor murdered in cold blood. They're not talking about the little girl who tried pulling the fire alarm to warn her friends who was shot by the psychopath. They're blaming the victims. They're saying people are lashing out against trans people because of this. I'd say keep your eye on the higher road. This is fake. This was instigated by fake fear caused by fake data spread by the FBI, the mainstream media, and these corrupt news organizations spreading fake information, telling people they're being attacked, basically. There's a big genocide coming for them. Let me show you a video of how the media is framing this whole thing.
Hale, who police say identifies as transgender. That news has already prompted some attacks against the trans community. KPRC2's Bryce Newberry picks up our coverage from here.
Demonstrators at the Texas state capitol Monday fighting against anti-trans bills being considered by state lawmakers as news broke that the Nashville school shooter identifies as transgender.
It doesn't excuse anything that happened. I am concerned about how opposition and people who are anti-trans will try to spin this.
Concern about tweets.
So what they're doing is they're trying to change the victim here, right? This is the same media organizations that if a black person is killed by a white person, it's every white person is evil, that this is hate crime, that there needs to be new laws against white extremism and so on. And when the tables are turned, after they instigated a group of people saying that you're going to be targeted for a genocide, go buy guns and go learn how to use them. A shooting takes place against the group they fake paint as the instigator. Shooting takes place against that group, and then they try to cover it up by blaming the victim. That's what the media is doing right now. And let me show you an example of this, folks. I'll show you a clear example. This is the Twitter account of the press secretary of Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs after the shooting took place. This is from Jocelyn Berry. This is one of these corrupt politicians pushing this violent narrative, and she posted this photo. Let me show you it. After the shooting, it says, "Us, when we see transphobes," and this is a woman holding 2 guns, and this was posted less than 12 hours after the shooting took place, which killed 3 9-year-old children and three faculty at a Christian school. This is the press secretary of the governor of Arizona, folks. Now, again, basically, the concern here is they're spreading data from the FBI to create a fake narrative, and they're bringing out this idea of what is the solution. Well, the solution, they're saying, is you need to be dangerous back. If you're in danger, be dangerous back. That's what they're saying. Let me show you NHPR here. You have to be dangerous back. Why some LGBTQ people in New Hampshire are taking up arms. It says in the court, and keep in mind, these are a lot of organizations that are normally very anti-gun. Why are they suddenly changing their narratives to being pro-gun? Why you tell me? In the corner of the parking lot of Pachacaway State Park, a half-dozen people assemble, 6 people, on a recent Sunday morning, making small talk as they pull on gloves, wool hats, and gun holsters. Quote, "I recognize the temperature is freezing, but this is not the most comfortable," Finn Smith, today's organizer, tells the group. "But if it's raining, we're training. If it's snowing, we're going." Amid the hikers and snowmobiles in the park today, these are members of a group called Rainbow Reload, an LGBTQ gun club that offers experts and the gun curious a chance to practice firearm skills in a supportive environment. Similar groups exist across the country, often under names like Pink Pistols and others. Rainbow Reload members stress that their mission goes beyond a mere hobby. They say the goal is to prepare and protect themselves from a rising chorus of threats against the LGBTQ plus people, including those stemming from hate groups. And of course, the perception of that is based on the false data from the FBI I just showed you. And this is Smith saying, quote, "If the world is dangerous, then you have to be dangerous back." It says, like everyone interviewed, he requested some level of anonymity, citing concerns about their safety, and added, quote, "And that very much has pushed me to where I am now." Pushed to where he is now by the fake data from the FBI and these news outlets and individuals claiming they're facing genocide. Now, given this, there's also the growing problem of radicalization among trans people getting involved in very radical movements. As Andy No, who's, I believe, actually homosexual, as he noted on Twitter, because he's one of the main reporters on Antifa and other groups like them, he says a lot of them are trans. And this Andy No is the top expert on Antifa. Says, during the 2020 BLM Antifa riots, I observed a disproportionate number of suspects at the violent riots were trans. I write about this in more detail in my book, Unmasked. There's a phenomena of young trans people being pulled into far-left violent radicalization. He includes several tweets here on this. In addition to government disinformation, people are pointing as well to public representatives in the past that seem to actually support this type of violence. Case in point, Lori Lightfoot, former mayor of Chicago. Let me show you Lori Lightfoot. She posted this before. "To my friends in the LGBT plus community, the Supreme Court is coming for us next. This moment has to be a call to arms." Folks, if Trump posted this, they'd be throwing him in prison. If Trump posted this, they'd call this incitement. They'd be going after him legally. That's Lori Lightfoot. She says, "We will not surrender our rights without a fight to victory." And this is not uncommon. Things like this are not uncommon. Here's another link, Daily Mail. Wayne State University English professor is suspended and referred to police after saying Stanford students who abused conservative judge should have killed him instead of just heckling. And you have a lot of people making statements like this, calling for actual murder, getting off the hook with like a slap on the wrist. And this is why people talk about the two-tiered system of justice, by the way. People are saying there's a two-tiered system of justice because if a conservative did this, they'd be going to jail for like 20 years. They'd be going to jail for a long time. I'm going to go deeper into this, but let's jump over to Epoch TV for this because we're treading on thin ice with all this stuff with YouTube. Before we jump over, though, folks, because I want to show you the trans day of violence. I saw people getting actually banned on Twitter for even talking about this. So join us on Epoch TV where we're going to talk about this. Before we jump over, though, folks, let me show you a quick trailer. Roman Balmakov, my colleague who does the show Facts Matter, he's doing a documentary on the eating bugs agenda and the food shortages. I mean, important topic, and he's fundraising for it. So if you want to support him, check this out. Let me show you this trailer, then we'll jump over.
For the past 6 months or so, my team and I have been working on a full-length documentary project. It's called Eat the Bugs, and it exposes a topic that I believe is incredibly important to everyone: the global war on farmers and the, you can say, secret agenda that's behind it, that secret agenda that's pushing it forward. Now, as many of you know, this all started when my team and I traveled to the Netherlands last year in order to cover the protests that were happening there. And after meeting with the local farmers and hearing their stories about how they were going to quite literally lose their generational farms, we were shocked, to say the least. But what we realized soon, as we dug deeper into the story, it became obvious that this was not confined to simply the Netherlands. In fact, this war on farmers, this global war on farmers, was indeed happening everywhere, including right here in the US. And for some odd reason, it coincided with this trend of celebrities promoting edible insects. And so we have been traveling for the better part of the last year on a mission to really understand this global war on farmers, the agenda behind it, what it means for the future of the food in our supermarkets, as well as what the common people like you and me who are caught up in all this can actually do about it. And right now, we're putting together all the interviews and all the findings from our journey into this new awesome documentary called Eat the Bugs. I really cannot wait to share it with you. And if you would like to help back this project, to help us with the funding, to finish editing the thing, and as well as to get it out to as many people across the entire world as possible, well, that would be absolutely awesome. You can go to epicoriginal.com/eatthebugs, or you can just click on that link in the description box below, and there you can sign up for updates, you can share the project with your friends and family, and you can donate some funding so that we can share the powerful voices of all these farmers from across the entire world. Let's make it happen.
Again, folks, if you want to support that, you can go to the website. That's epochoriginal.com/eatthebugs. And they're looking for, of course, donations to help get the thing finished. Roman's a great guy, too. He does some great work. All right, folks, that says jump over to Epoch TV exclusively, and I will see you there. And, folks, thank you for being here. I'm sorry about the heavy topic.